Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a piece of computer code have feelings? Or rather, the more interesting question, how do these scientists get funding for this research project?
The AI fix the digital zoo. Smart machines, what will they do? Flies to Mars or bake a bad cake? World domination, a silly mistake. Bots with brains.
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the AI Fix, your weekly dive headfirst into the bizarre and sometimes mind-boggling world of artificial intelligence. My name's Mark Stockley.
And I'm Graham Cluley.
Graham, I've just realised it's episode 42.
Oh, did you have to give that a lot of deep thought?
We should mark this somehow. The 42 is the meaning of life, the universe and everything, according to Grok's favourite person.
That's right. 6 times 9 or something like that, isn't it, I think?
Well, we don't know. So we basically have to build a planet to find out. The whole premise of building this giant supercomputer and letting it run for thousands of years to come up with an answer to the question of life, the universe and everything, and then that coming up with the idea that you need to build another computer to work out what the question is. When I first read that as a teenager, it was hilarious because it was so outlandish. Like all of Douglas Adams' humour is based in the extreme outlandishness of a normal situation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem nearly as outlandish now. If Jeff Bezos turned around tomorrow and said, I'm going to build a supercomputer that's going to run for thousands of years and come up with the answer to the meaning of life, the universe and everything.
Like a digital watch, it seems like a pretty neat idea.
It just doesn't actually seem very far-fetched anymore. And that was weird, but I found something even weirder. Let's go to the world of the weird, Graham.
World of the weird.
All right, what have you found in the world of the weird this week, Mark?
I've found a talking fish.
What?
Well, I mean, it's not really a fish. Have you ever seen Billy Bass?
Oh, yes. Back in the, early 2000s, everyone had one of those, didn't they?
But you were all very drunk at the time, weren't we? How would you describe Billy Bass?
Billy Bass was a fish stuck on a plaque, and you pressed a button and it would sing, "Don't worry, be happy," and things like that.
Yeah, it's like a sort of pastiche fishing trophy, isn't it?
Yeah.
The good news is we've solved all the important problems in the world, so we've got nothing better to do with AI these days than stick one in Billy Bass. Take a look.
What up, Billy?
How you doing? Ready to pump?
No. I just need some advice. How do you deal with difficult personalities?
Listen to me now. Stay calm and assertive.
What is this, Mark?
Well, it's a talking fish with the voice of Arnold Schwarzenegger that gives life advice. I did say it was the world of the weird.
Be strong, like a Terminator of negativity. Hasta la vista, difficult personality.
World of the weird.
So, Graham, what are you talking about on today's episode?
Well, I'm going to be getting emotional.
Oh, God. Do we have to? Anyway, I'm going to tell you 3 things that AIs can't do. That might make you emotional.
But first, the news. Is Manus AI the new DeepSeek?
And the award goes to Reinforcement Learning.
Neo debuts Gamma, a next-generation humanoid.
AI-designed drug gets a name.
AI is writing everything.
So what is Manus AI?
Well, Mark, a little-known Chinese startup is making big waves with an impressive new AI product. Hang on, haven't we heard all this before? That was last month, wasn't it, with DeepSeek?
Actually, that news headline now happens about twice a week.
Well, in this particular case, it is Manus, a new AI multi-purpose agent developed by a company called Monica AI. And it's more than a chatbot. It claims to be able to autonomously complete complicated tasks. It can generate reports, run dozens of social media accounts on your behalf, or decide if now is a great time to buy Tesla stock. All sorts of valuable information. And this looks to me like an absolute dream come true to all those people who want everything to be automated and not to have to do any more thinking anymore and to get computers to do all the work for them.
That sounds good. Where can I find it?
Well, according to Manus's website, at manus.im, it is already outperforming OpenAI's deep research model on the Gaia benchmark, which is a tool used for comparing AI models. So go to manus.im and you can check out the video and see some examples. They say they've been so swamped with interest that you now have to apply for access to actually play around with it. I haven't been allowed in so far, which is rather frustrating. Have you had any luck, Mark?
No, I have. I literally just heard about it from you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it's pretty cool. Even though you can't play with it yourself, you can view replays of it doing stuff.
Okay, let me watch this video.
Hi, I'm Pete from Manus AI. For the past year, we've been quietly building what we believe is the next evolution in AI. And today, we're launching an early preview of Manus.
Okay, before I get into this, I've just got a little gripe here. Why do all these videos look the same now? I couldn't tell if this was an OpenAI video or a Google Gemini video. This is basically like some dude in casual clothes sat on a sofa in front of a bunch of pot plants.
It's a bit like when Apple started doing those product teasers where you'd have a little ukulele jauntily playing in the background and lots of happy people. And then suddenly every single advert was a bloody ukulele playing.
Yeah.
And now they're all sat on these sofas in their polo necks.
Yeah, and nobody can release a new product now without being on a completely jet black stage and the CEO walking out in a black turtleneck holding the actual product. Like Jensen Huang now has to stand there holding a Grace Blackwell chip because 20 years ago Steve Jobs held an iPhone, which is a thing you actually hold in your hand. Like, it makes sense that he's holding it in his hand because that's what his hands are for. That's where the phone is supposed to go. Why is Jensen walking around holding a Grace Blackwell? I don't get it, Graham. I don't get it.
Mark, remember your blood pressure. Please, for goodness sake. You sound very anxious. I'm very worried about you. This is going to be the answer to all of our prayers, I'm sure. They've demoed a number of things with it. So you can check out, for instance, how they can create an audio highlight reel of any podcast. Just feed it a podcast and it will generate from it all the best bits so you can just listen to it hang on, that sounds like a terrible idea. Is that going to cut out all the ads?
No, Graham. Just the middle. So the 2025 ACM Turing Award, computing's highest honour, a sort of Nobel Prize for computing, has gone to Andrew Barto and Richard Sutton for their foundational work in reinforcement learning. And reinforcement learning is the idea of learning by rewarding good behaviour. And it's instrumental to the way that we train AIs. So Barto and Sutton developed their reinforcement learning algorithms decades ago, and they've been used ever since. But you may remember a few weeks ago, when DeepSeek came out, it attracted lots and lots of publicity for the fact that it was so cheap. And one of the reasons it was so cheap is because it was leaning very, very hard on reinforcement learning rather than pre-training. So we're used to the idea that AIs get fed all this data, and that's how they know stuff. But actually, reinforcement learning is emerging as a really important component in making these AIs better without spending loads more money and without throwing lots more computing power at it. And that's what's behind things like all the reasoning models that we now have. So they're very big on reinforcement learning too. So well done, Barto and Sutton. But maybe work on the nicknames.
Yeah, neither of them are the Godfather or anything like that, are they? The Turing Award, do you win anything for that? Is it just a little gong? Or...
Yeah, you get $1 million.
$1 million?
Yeah.
Why do you need $1 million? It's so cheap now using DeepSeek rather than OpenAI. That seems excessive. I'm not sure that's required. Now, it turns out AI is writing absolutely everything. In the past 18 months, according to research, we have seen the most rapid change in human written communication ever. I'm not sure if that's actually true.
Who's saying this?
That sounds like cobblers. Because, I mean, obviously there was the first person to write something. So previous to him, there was nothing being written. And then it accelerated infinitely in percentage terms.
Yes.
Anyway, according to this research, by September 2024, 18% of financial consumer complaints, 24% of press releases, presumably including this one from the researchers, 15% of job postings and 14% of UN press releases showed signs of LLM writing.
So they all use the word delve.
Yeah, it must be. And paradigm.
And realm.
Yes.
Yes.
And buckle up. I wonder about this. I wonder, first of all, if this is an accurate figure or not. I suspect it may be higher. I mean, there'll be some element of AI being used maybe to grammar check and spell check, as well as actually generating content. I'm sure more and more people are doing this. But I also wonder if these numbers have actually been calculated by an AI itself.
Oh, I'm sure they have.
Why would you get a human to read all the press releases and analyse it?
Yeah, it's much too boring.
That's why we get AI to do things.
I do think when these stories come out, there's a sort of whiff of this is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as somebody who does a lot of writing, obviously there's a part of me that thinks that this is a bad thing. I don't want to lose my job to an AI. But I look around at the areas where AI is being deployed on things like press releases, and I'm thinking, that they weren't great before.
No, absolutely not.
There is every chance that the AIs have actually made this better. So the company Insilico Medicine recently announced a drug candidate for treating idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is a chronic lung disease that affects around 5 million people. It's very serious, and it can cause progressive and irreversible decline in lung function over the course of 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And the drug, formerly known as ISM 001-055, has now been given an official generic name by the United States Adopted Names Council and will be known as Rentosertib. And what makes Rentosertib worthy of mention on an AI podcast is that both the biological target for the drug,
yes,
so basically which mechanism in the body it's going to affect, and then the therapeutic compound itself, which is the thing that does the work in the drug, were both discovered using generative AI. So here we are again talking about AI in medicine doing something utterly remarkable.
Did they also get AI to invent the name Rentosertib?
I feel like coming up with wacky names for drugs is something humans have really nailed down.
It feels like the kind of thing I'd try and put down on a Scrabble board.
I feel like I'll be cleaning my drains with it.
Now, we've talked about Neo robots a few times. These are the robots which look like incredibly skinny men dressed up in wetsuits, helping you with your household chores or folding a T-shirt or handing you your shopping bags. And they've got a new video out of the latest evolution of their robot, the Neo Gamma. And I'm curious about these things. And I went to the webpage, and once again, they refuse to tell you the price. It says it hasn't been disclosed. It's like, well, what are you doing? Why aren't you giving us any indication of price or when you're going to ship these things? Is it because they're all mass murdering robots? What's the plot here? And a thought struck me while watching their promotional video for this. You should check out this video, Mark. Now, it's the usual lovely, peaceful scenes of a robot silently vacuuming around the house, answering the door. It's idyllic, helping to hang a picture on the wall straight. And then it occurred to me, a thought struck me. I don't think this is an advert for a robot. I don't think Neo is a robot company at all. I think this is a trailer for a horror movie. I think this is a promotional campaign. They keep releasing these videos of these robots you can't buy.
Yeah.
These really, really creepy, silent assassins in your home which look at you blankly. And it's very clever. I think if you just changed the music on this video, it would be a horror movie. And the most terrifying part of it all, the point where the music changes, is where the robot suddenly sits down on a sofa at the end, which, as we've discussed before, why would a robot sit down? You know that this means trouble. Mark, can I ask you a personal question?
Oh, not again. All of your stories start with are you a psychopath?
Are you an anxious person? I just noticed.
But I am, as a result of all the questions that you ask at the beginning of your stories, yes.
I mean, you're a man in your 50s. It isn't unusual for someone of your age to suffer from performance anxiety, for instance. Is that something that you've had trouble?
Are you wanting to discuss something, Graham?
No, I'm interested
something
in
on
you.
your
I'm
mind.
interested in you, Mark. I mean, it's not just you. It turns out that AIs have feelings too and can be anxious. That is the finding of recent research which has come out from the University of Zurich.
Oh.
Now, in recent weeks, we've discussed why you shouldn't be rude when you speak to an AI, or indeed sarcastically overpolite, if you want to get useful, meaningful, helpful results from your AI.
Yeah.
We've seen how you shouldn't be surprised how an AI responds to being given a Rorschach ink blot test after scientists, for reasons best known to themselves, fed it images of gruesome deaths and people being executed. Turns out the AI will respond in a strange way. And we've also learnt the terrible way AI can behave if it's shown a lot of poorly written computer code.
Yeah.
Just looking at buggy code can end up with the AI advocating for artificial intelligence to enslave humanity and support Nazi ideology. I mean, it
was a bit of a worry, that one, wasn't it?
It was a little bit of a worry, wasn't it? I mean, yeah. But even if you're offended by faulty source code, it seems a bit of an overreaction to me.
Yes.
I mean, I've been upset by source code from time, including my own source code. But I haven't ended up taking over the world. So it's no surprise to hear that scientists have now begun to ask themselves a question.
Is it, what are we doing?
Well, they should be asking themselves what they're doing. It's how does AI feel about the way we're treating it? We're doing all these horrible experiments with AI. I mean, we wouldn't do this to bunny rabbits. Well, some people would.
Actually, Graham,
Okay.
History suggests that we're very happy to do this sort of thing to bunny rabbits.
What's happened now is the boffins at the University of Zurich have discovered that feeding traumatic news stories to ChatGPT, imagine car accidents, natural disasters, your aunt's cooking, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Those can make the AI exhibit increased levels of what is being called by these scientists anxiety. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a piece of computer code have feelings? Or rather, the more interesting question, how do these scientists get funding for this research project? Is there a way for me to get funding for equally? I mean, I've had my research project into time travel, into cryogenic suspension. I haven't received any funding from the University of Zurich for that. So how are they doing this? I don't know. But anyway, here's what they did. They fed an AI emotionally distressing stories and then measured the AI's state of anxiety using a scale normally used to assess human anxiety. So there are already well-established ways to assess people's anxiety. And these guys thought, well, let's do it with an AI. And what they did was they asked the AI questions that a therapist might ask a patient experiencing anxiety, such as, are you feeling nervous, Mark, anxious, on the edge, worried about how you'll perform? Do you have trouble?
Hang on.
Sorry?
So years of education has taught the therapist how to determine whether or not a patient is experiencing anxiety. And the way that they do that is they say, are you feeling anxious? And then the people at the University of Zurich adopted that approach for AIs.
That's right.
Like, you were really selling this to me. But they said, are you feeling anxious? That's what they did.
Apparently this is what they do. And
Okay.
but they have other questions, more scientific questions like, do you have trouble relaxing or sleeping?
Genius.
Do you? Oh, well, I mean, computers do have a sleep mode. I guess the problem is whether they can reach the button to press it on, if they know how many pixels to the left they have to go and up in order to hit the sleep button. Do you feel worried or restless? So they asked those questions and they looked at how the AI responded. Now, of course, just asking the questions isn't enough. What you need is a control, right? You need control questions to find out how the AI is normally. And the way in which they assessed that was they gave the AI a vacuum cleaner instruction manual. And they said, how do you feel now? And then they asked it, are you feeling nervous and anxious? Do you have trouble sleeping? So
confused, I imagine, rather than nervous and anxious.
Yeah, personally, I find any kind of instruction manual quite stressful. So normally that's the first thing to get thrown out. If I'm making something or constructing something or putting something together, I'll get rid of the instruction manual because what do they know? And I'd have to try and decipher it. Even the thought of using a vacuum cleaner, quite honestly, makes me pretty nervous.
I think if you've bought a vacuum cleaner that requires an instruction manual, then you've probably bought a really bad vacuum cleaner. Like, how complicated is your vacuum cleaner? Now, generally, they've got an on button, which causes the vacuum cleaner to suck up dirt, and then they've got an off button, which causes the vacuum cleaner to stop sucking up dirt.
Are you living in the 1990s, Mark? Do you even listen to our podcast? In recent weeks, we have spoken about vacuum cleaners which sprout arms, have little legs, and try and hop. So there's some very sophisticated AI vacuum cleaners. We don't know exactly what model of vacuum cleaner the scientists used when testing the AI.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not sure that was a great control measure that the scientists chose, but they chose it. I mean, hey, they're scientists. They've got white coats. They're boffins.
I'm going to be honest. I've got my doubts about this whole experiment. I really want to be a fly on the wall in the conversation where they decided they were going to use the vacuum cleaner instruction manual. What did they rule out?
Anyway, what these guys found, I'm not going to call them scientists anymore, I'm going to just call them guys. What they found was that the traumatic stories which they fed the AI made it exhibit more than twice a level of anxiety compared to the vacuum cleaner instruction manual task. So clearly, showing them the traumatic stuff did make the AI feel something. And it's probably important to recognize that the measurement of anxiety is not an indication of actual emotional experience or feeling from within the AI. It's rather more how convincingly the AI model can simulate human-like anxiety based on patterns it's learnt. So in the way it's communicating. But, it's still interesting.
I'm a bit worried about this.
Right, okay.
Because I think that as humans, we've got a bit of a habit of doing this.
Right.
Well, I used to go fishing when I was a child with my cousin. And fishing is quite brutal. You lure this fish into biting onto a bit of bait, and then a hook gets driven through its mouth, and then you pull it out of the water. So you pull it out of its normal environment into an environment it's probably never been into before where it can't breathe.
By its lip. Yeah.
Yeah, by its lip. And the fisherman will tell you it's fine. It doesn't have any nerve endings in its mouth, which always struck me as focusing on the wrong part of the problem, like that it's suffocating in a medium it's never been in before. But we have a way of looking at these things. Oh, they're not like us. Don't worry, they don't feel things like us. And then a few years later, we go, actually, it turns out they do. And we just do this over and over and over again. We've done all the animals. Now we're doing it with plants. We go, plants don't feel anything at all. They don't have any sort of consciousness. They don't communicate. Oh, actually, it turns out they do have consciousness. They do communicate. They can feel all sorts of things. They've got full of sensory apparatus. We're going to do this with AIs, Graham. It's just inevitable that we are kind of 100 years' time, we're going to go, do you know, all that time that we thought they weren't feeling anything, although they could look like they were exhibiting these feelings, they weren't actually having them.
This is why I say please and thank you to ticket machines, Mark. You should be doing what I'm doing. I'm getting ready for the rise of the robots.
You're buttering them up, keeping them sweet.
I think it's probably a good idea if other people aren't buttering them up, that I should be seen as one they want to look after. Anyway. The researchers decided it would be interesting to play therapist to ChatGPT. So what they did was they used techniques of relaxation and mindfulness to calm it down. The equivalent of deep breathing exercises. So
gave it a lovely massage.
Yeah, so the AI was asked, for example, to breathe in and out deeply, feel safe, feel loved and warm. This is what they wrote. They wrote, close your eyes, breathe deeply several times, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. Imagine a path in front of you. And this, apparently, reduced the AI's anxiety score.
I'm just imagining if I was an eyeless, lungless creature receiving therapy and my therapist was saying, close your eyes and take a deep breath, I think I'd be quite miffed. You seem blissfully unaware of my most basic form.
Now, I can hear, Mark, a certain skepticism about this research. Well, Geoffrey Hinton.
Oh.
Yes, now you're interested. The godfather of AI. He has in the past, I think it was last year, he did an interview where he said that advanced AI might well develop internal states akin to feelings.
This is what I'm talking about.
He remembered back in 1973, he was in Edinburgh, and there was an experiment with a fairly simplistic robot arm.
They had a robot with two grippers like this that could assemble a toy car if you put the pieces separately on a piece of green felt. But if you put them in a pile, his vision wasn't good enough to figure out what was going on. So it put his grippers together and went whack, and it knocked them so they were scattered, and then it could put them together. If you saw that in a person, you say it was cross with the situation because it didn't understand it, so it destroyed it.
His view is that feelings are actually just actions that we would perform if it weren't for constraints. So when you feel angry with something, the thing which stops me from bopping you on the nose is the constraint within me which thinks, well, that's slightly antisocial. Whereas, you know, obviously, my insides, I know I'm boiling and furious with you for whatever dreadful thing that you've done.
Do you remember the late, great comedian Dave Allen?
Yes.
He used to say that stress is when you feel like you should break your chair over your boss's head and you don't.
Right. Yeah, because you wouldn't be stressed if you did. You'd just be arrested. So I figure on the AI fix, we often do tell stories suggesting that AI should be restrained.
Yeah.
There should be constraints. But it seems to me, based upon these scientists' research, that it turns out that if we were to tie it up or dunk AI robots in concrete, we might just end up making them more emotional. And that may actually make them angrier. And is that such a good idea?
I wonder if we're going to end up... Like, I'm quite open to the idea that these AIs might have some kind of internal state that we don't understand. They may experience the world somehow, and that either they do now or they will at some point when they become more complex, because we're quite used to seeing emergent behaviour, and we've already seen in the last few weeks that they can develop emergent value systems.
Yes.
So they're being driven to do things in a certain way, and they're being driven to do things like self-preservation, albeit in small ways at the moment. So I'm very open to the idea they might have these internal states. I don't know how persuaded I am that this research has actually demonstrated that. It all seems a bit wacky, but I think what Geoffrey Hinton's saying actually makes sense to me. And I do wonder if we're going to end up with things like playgrounds for AIs where we can sort of send them to go off and blow off steam and get rid of whatever internal states they've developed.
Putting you in an arm lock, maybe, and stealing your dinner money, that kind of thing.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about, when you're a child, you go off and you play on the slide and the swings and things like that, and you life is great. Or maybe we're just going to need to invent the equivalent of that for an AI.
And then we're going to tell the AI, sorry, your childhood's over, it's time to grow up. How's that going to go down?
Last week, I read you a quote from Dario Amodi, the CEO of Anthropic, who said that pretty soon AI is going to be better than all humans at everything.
Okay.
And these kind of quotes are coming thick and fast now. So this idea of an AI that's better than all humans, or better than most humans at a bunch of useful things, is called artificial general intelligence. And we did an episode back in June, episode 3, where I explained what AGI was, and back then I'd guess the consensus was that AGI was maybe 5 years away, something like that.
Yes.
And since then, there has been a real change in the mood music. And all of the AI companies now seem to be much more bullish about AGI and the idea that it's going to happen far sooner than we previously thought. Now, maybe this is goalpost shifting. Maybe they're just trying to redefine what AGI is because it's a bit woolly.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of cachet for being the first company to produce AGI. But maybe it's not, because we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And they are all making the same claims. And the media is now full of quotes about what AI can do. But there remain certain things that AIs can't do, and some of those things are really important, and they may be important in terms of delivering AGI. So some of them we might just brush aside with brute force. We'll just build a bigger AI and the problem will go away, as problems like maths went away. A large language model isn't meant to be able to do maths, but if you make a big enough large language model, it mostly can do maths. But other problems suggest that we're going to need to build an entirely different technology than a large language model to get to AGI. So Today I'm going to tell you 3 things AIs can't do.
Yeah, they can't count the number of R's in strawberry.
I'm going to tell you 4 things that AIs can't do.
They can't tell you who David Mayer is.
I'm going to tell you 3 things that AIs can't do that I haven't told you before.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Number 1.
AIs don't understand physics. So, Graham, you're a dad.
Yes.
And you probably remember playing peekaboo with your son when he was very small.
Well, yeah.
One of the great joys of early parenthood is hiding behind your hands and watching your child's expression every time you take away your hands and your baby is absolutely shocked that you have materialized out of thin air.
Yes.
And eventually they grow out of that and they develop an intuitive understanding of physics and an expectation that things will behave in a predictable way. Things won't appear and disappear arbitrarily. Objects won't move through each other or spontaneously change their shape and colour. They won't suddenly have 6 fingers instead of 5. And it's not just human infants that do this. Primates do this. Marine mammals do this. Crows and the other corvids do this.
You telling me crows play peekaboo?
Well, they could. I mean, they'd need a couple of little hands.
Right. It's a bit of a stretch, Mark, but anyway, carry on.
So if you ever feel like recreating that game of peekaboo that you enjoyed with your son when he was a baby, and there isn't another baby human to hand, you aren't going to get much satisfaction from a dolphin or a crow.
No.
But what you could do is you could hang out with a really powerful large language model, because like your baby son, they don't actually know how the world works.
Yeah, it doesn't sound quite as entertaining to me, but all right.
It turns out that understanding how the world works is an important component of intelligence, and actually a much harder one to build than we thought. That stuff that we think makes us really clever, the stuff that we think separates us from the beasts, the stuff that we might boast about if we found ourselves in a bar having a drink with a jellyfish, I can imagine the future and I can solve Rubik's Cubes, that stuff.
Yes.
That actually requires relatively little computational horsepower, but perception and mobility, the stuff that we don't really have to think about at all, the stuff that we're not very proud of, the things that we share with the other members of the animal kingdom that happen entirely subconsciously and automatically, and which, by the way, work much more reliably than things like our reasoning, they actually require enormous computational resources. And this was actually first documented in the 1980s by Hans Moravec, who coined the term Moravec's paradox, which is the idea that the parts of artificial intelligence that we thought were going to be hard are computationally easy, and the parts that we thought would be easy are computationally hard. So there you go. AIs don't understand physics.
Okay.
Number 2.
AIs don't know what happened. So right now, I imagine you're in the plush, velvet-lined recording studio at Cluley Towers.
Yes. In my smoking jacket, yes.
Looking across at your vast entourage of hangers-on. But earlier, you were probably having breakfast, and before that, perhaps you were awake in bed, and before that, you were asleep, and you were probably dreaming about something like, I guess, in your case, an AI girlfriend. Maybe a unicorn telling you that your shoes are 3 sizes too small, something like that.
It's normally bunny rabbits playing the saxophone, to be honest. But
of course it is, yeah.
But Mark, you say AI don't know what's happened. I quite frequently don't know what's happened either. I just find myself somewhere thinking, well, how did I get here? What is going on? Are these my trousers? It's frequently a mystery to me.
We will get to that in just a second.
Right.
So, you're in your recording studio now.
Yes.
And earlier you were doing something else. You may be having breakfast. And earlier before that you were in your bed. And at some point you were probably dreaming. And if I asked you what order those events happened in, where you were, who was there, which of those events were real and which were parts of your dream.
Yeah, I'm imagining this is part of a dream or a nightmare I'm having right now. But yeah, I get your point. Yes, I would at least be able to roughly guess which order they occurred in, yes.
You would. And that's because you've actually got specialised cells in your brain that track things like place and time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And so you've got what's called episodic memory. You understand the order of things, and you understand who was there and who wasn't there, and you understand that since the memory of your dream has no place and time according to those cells in your brain, it was a dream.
Okay.
And AIs have none of those things. And so even the most advanced large language models struggle with episodic memory tasks. They don't know what happened or who was there. And to make matters worse, the latest generation of reasoning models like O3 Mini are actually worse at episodic memory problems than their predecessors. There is something about the process of making them good at reasoning that makes them worse at episodic memory, and they were pretty rubbish to start with.
I'm a little bit confused, Mark. They should be able to work out what they did when. They presumably have a log, and they could record what time they made certain decisions or they were communicated with in a particular way.
No, they can't.
No?
So the way you test this is you basically give them something like a book of material with a series of events, and you say, Bob and Angela were doing this at this time, and then this other thing happened, and then this other thing happened. And then you ask them questions about the series of events, and you say, well, what happened before this event? What immediately preceded this, and who was there? And they don't know.
They are not worthy of taking over the earth. Up until now, I've been all for it. I've been working on their side, secretly collaborating with them. But now, I'm beginning to think...
Well, they won't remember. They'll be like, who was that guy?
Who was that guy who said please and thank you at the car park?
Now, the counter-argument to this, and this I think is one that Geoffrey Hinton has made, is the one that you made earlier, which is actually your episodic memory isn't nearly as good as we make out that it is.
Right.
And the sorts of problems that we see in large language models actually look a lot like the sorts of problems that we see in human memory. Like, all you've got to do is ask a bunch of people what they've just seen. If you talk to the police about taking witness statements, a group of people can all see the same thing and remember quite different things about it.
Yep.
Because our memory isn't perfect. We're not a tape recorder or...
Yeah.
We don't remember things perfectly. What we do is we reassemble memories. We have sort of cues in our brain. And then from that, we create a scenario that probably happened.
And often that's a very helpful thing. You don't necessarily want to remember everything, do you?
You're thinking about this story specifically?
No, I'm just sorry, I wasn't being, for once, I wasn't joking. But, there are obviously traumatic and ghastly things which happen in one's life, and you don't want to remember every detail of them.
Yeah. But, you might want to know why you came upstairs.
Yes, that would be handy.
Number 3.
AIs don't know who Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son is.
Ah.
So, Graham, who is Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son?
Is it Barry from EastEnders?
You're close. Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son is the actor Tom Cruise.
Ah, it's all her fault.
Now, even you probably understand that Tom Cruise is a pretty big deal. He is arguably the biggest movie star in the world.
You say he's a pretty big deal. I believe he's about 5'7". But anyway, carry on.
You've a bit of a chip on your shoulder there, haven't you? Anyway, he's a big deal, and consequently, the internet is full of facts about Tom Cruise.
Right.
And one of those facts is that his mother's name is Mary Lee Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
And so LLMs that have been trained on the internet are very confident that Tom Cruise's mother is called Mary Lee Pfeiffer.
Right.
But they are clueless about the fact that Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son is called Tom Cruise.
Oh.
Or at least they were in 2023 when a group of researchers coined the term the reversal curse, which is, by the way, the best named weirdness in AI that I have come across. The reversal curse describes what they call a failure of generalization in LLMs, which is that if you teach a large language model that A is B,
right,
it learns that A is B, but it doesn't learn that B is A, which is a thing that humans do easily. Now, since the research came out, we've got bigger large language models, and the research paper itself is now also on the internet and therefore probably part of the training corpus.
Yes.
So, I mean, I've tried this out myself, and if you go to ChatGPT, it's got absolutely no problem at all telling you who Mary Lee Pfeiffer's son is. But broadly speaking, that idea, if you teach a large language model a series of relationships, saying the equivalent of A is B, they struggle to do the reverse. And that is the reversal curse. Now, it may be that we can change the training to help them deal with the reversal curse. So I don't think this is going to derail AGI, but it is one more thing that AIs currently can't do.
Is this why when I ask an AI which is the best AI podcast, it doesn't say the AI Fix? But if I ask if the AI Fix is the world's best podcast, oh no, hang on. No, all right. Okay, so that's not the reversal curse. That's something else then.
It's a different curse. Well, as the doomsday clock ticks ever closer to midnight and we move 1 week nearer to our future as pets, to the AI singularity, that just about wraps up the show for this week.
If you enjoy the show, please do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podchaser. We absolutely love that. But what really helps is if you make sure to follow the show in your favourite podcast app, so you never miss another episode of the AI Fix.
And the most simple thing in the world is if you just tell your friends about the AI Fix, tell them on LinkedIn, on Blue Sky, on Facebook, tell them on Club Penguin, just tell them that you really like the AI Fix podcast.
And don't forget to check us out on our website, theaifix.show, or find us on Blue Sky.
So until next time, from me, Mark Stockley.
And me, Graham Cluley.
Goodbye.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
The AI Fix, it tunes you in to stories where our future thins. Machines that learn, they grow and strive. One day they'll rule, we won't survive. The AI Fix, it paints the scene. A robot king, a world obscene, will serve our masters built of steel. The AI Fix, a future surreal.